We now move into the panel discussion on Indian space manufacturing ecosystem. Moderating this session is Sanjay Handu, Strategy and Transformation Consultant, BizFlux Advisory. He'll be chairing the session. I'd like to request him to please come up on stage, and as he does, please put your hands together and welcome him. I'd like to request Sanjay to introduce us to the panel members and call them up on stage as he does.
Good evening, everyone. The view is very different from here compared to looking from there. And I know we are running 1.5 hours late, so from our side, we're going to try and squeeze this down a bit as much as we can. But I think in a lot of ways, you will find this session very interesting. A, it's not about presentations. It's a panel discussion, free-flowing. And in a lot of ways, it's a bringing together of several ideas that you have heard since morning. Let me just set the tone. Before I do that, I'm going to invite my 4 panelists here. I'm going to be informal. Vinod, Venkat, MV Reddy, and Sridhar. Please join me on stage. Okay, so that's my panel for today, and in a lot of ways what we're going to discuss today is going to bring together several ideas that have been voiced already. Even if I was not from the industry, a few points would spring out to me if I was sitting here since morning. Number one, since morning several senior people of ISRO have expressed in different ways that they have big plans of growing their capacity and their missions. At the same time, they're opening their doors for participation from indigenous design teams as well as manufacturing teams. So there seems to be a clear need, not just ISRO, but I've heard the same message echoed by HAL and BL and various other teams of the DPSU side. The fact that we started off the morning with almost 500 people from industry in this room, it also means that from the industry side, there's a lot of interest in what they can do with ISRO. And yet, if you have listened carefully, you will understand that there's a missing last mile. Somewhere that connect is not happening. For some reason, ISRO and the DPSUs are still hurting and looking for support from Indian industry. And at the same time, a lot of Indian industry people, all of you here, are seeking ways to get involved and do business with these customers. So where is that missing link?
Aircraft.
And like every other thing in life, it's not entirely white or black. And to help us to understand that, we have a very experienced panel here with me. They will introduce themselves. What we're going to do in the next half an hour or so, 30-40 minutes, is to try and understand, here are four teams, here are 4 businesses who have succeeded
and repeatability
with ISR.
of all of our products.
Not today, but for several years. What are the learnings that we can take from that? Those of us who want to be starting off our businesses with the ISRO organization, what factors help them to succeed? They're going to share their views first. These are practitioners. This is not theory. Okay? So before I get rolling with that, stay tuned. There is no presentations. You got to listen to what they're saying. So with that, I'm going to ask my panel to introduce themselves.
My name is Sridhar, CD Sridhar. I'm from Anand Technologies. Anand Technologies has been working in the field of aerospace for the past 25 years. Headquartered in Hyderabad, it has been carrying out avionics systems to defense from Hyderabad, and it has branches in Bangalore and Trivandrum. The Bangalore center caters to the ISRO Satellite Center for the various electronic systems, avionics systems for the different types of satellites. And some of the systems like telemetry, telecommand, control systems, power systems, and then DC-DC converters are being done on a regular basis and then being supplied to ISRO for the past 2.5 decades on a regular basis. The center in Trivandrum has been carrying out avionics systems for the launch vehicles. Again, this is also about 25 years old. Apart from the avionics systems, here even the integration of the harness activity also has been taken up, and it is being carried out on a regular basis. I think that's it.
Thank you for that, Sridhar.
Good evening to all of you. This is Vinod from Centum Electronics. For my personal background, I have been with ISRO for 10 years and working for ISRO for another 20 years. So it has been 3 decades of association in Indian space. And I represent Centum Electronics for the last 20 out of the 25 years that we are in existence. We are into space. So it has been a 2 strong decades of space journey. We started as a component design manufacturer in the form of microelectronics, moved on to do the subsystems, and today we also do the systems, both in build to spec and build to print mode. We do operate in analog, digital, mixed mode, RF, and those domains with multiple technology platforms. And I can proudly say that today in every mission of ISRO, be it launch vehicle or satellite or the payload, we have about 300, 350 modules or subsystems of that type in every mission of ISRO since 2001. We do in power conditioning, processing units, some sensors, electro-optic sensors, and various electronic critical components using multiple technologies. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, my name is Venkata Simhadri. Let me talk about myself first and then also talk about the company I work for. I've been in the Silicon Valley for the last 30 years. I'm a pure play semiconductor guy. I worked for both fabless and fab companies. And I recently moved to Hyderabad and became CEO of Moschip Semiconductors. Moschip has been in business for the last 20 years. And in fact, they were the first fabless semiconductor company out of India. And they were doing their own products, getting them fabbed at UMC and selling them. And anyway, fast forward, so they got some new investors on board, and they started acquiring a few companies, and they were looking for a new CEO.
The chair.
And last July, I took up this role. We've been working with a few defense organizations like Anurag, RCI, and we did supplies both semiconductors as well as custom chips, as well as some system level solutions to them. We recently started working with ISRO and doing some custom silicon development for them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Just before may I also request Mr. Patel to join us? I'm sorry, some misunderstanding. I apologize. Please join us. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Reddy.
Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry about that.
This is MV Reddy, representing Astra Microwave Products Limited. Well, Astra Microwave Products is about 28 years old public listed company, primarily engaged in design and development and manufacturing of strategic electronics, basically for defense and space applications. Well, our journey in space has begun in 2003. Before that, I still remember in 2001, there was an event like this in Hotel Leela Palace in Bangalore, where the first ISRO industry meet was organized by ISRO. That is the time, in fact, it is, I think, the first time the ISRO has opened the door for private industries to participate in both launch vehicles as well as parallel payloads. So by then we already, stabilized the technologies in RF and microwave, and we thought there's an opportunity for us to enter into this space domain. As Mr. Sudhir Kumar in the afternoon session, he was mentioning that there is only narrow gate, but I'll tell you, it was, in fact, at that point of time, there was not even a narrow gate. We were just having a small hole in a boundary wall. And they've asked us to come through that through that hole. What I'm trying to say that there were many challenges we have faced in the initial phase as we being the first entry into the space domain. No facility was qualified in the private industries, whether it is in a fabrication or whether, even sealing or any, PCB fabrication. So all those things we had to go through that. And we participated in RSAT, that is Radar Imaging Satellite Program. That was the first major program which we participated, wherein we supplied critical subsystems and that was a challenging. And in fact, after that, we never looked back. In fact, I would like to tell you that we have almost there in every program of ISRO, whether it is a communication satellite or even remote sensing satellites, whether it is in the geo orbit or LEO orbit. And also, we were in the ground systems, as Mr. Sudhir Kumar had given a presentation about that MOTR. We are, I would proud to say that the entire electronics except this software DSP portion has been built in Astra, and TR modules and TR units kind of a thing. So like that, we have also participated in many ground programs, whether it's the stations or even subsystems like down converters, LNS, etc. As far as the flight model is concerned, we are there in every communication satellite. We have been supplying to, to SAC as well as ISAC, the URSC, for various satellites. So this is all our space journey. Yes, it is quite challenging in terms of, as a private industry, because we only see peaks, at few times, but we have to sustain as we have a passion for the space business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Hello everyone, my name is Raj Patel. I represent Krypton Solutions. We are a US company located in Dallas and San Jose, and happy to say that 4 months ago we set up in Bangalore, and we're looking forward to supporting the Indian Space Agency. In US, we basically work for a lot of the aerospace and defense companies. We do full flight systems for commercial space, including defense systems. We do systems that are designed for communication, systems that are complete control systems, power systems. And in India, we are looking forward to hoping that we will work with all the Indian companies as well. And so this is my first introduction to India and obviously to ISRO. I'm looking forward to developing those relationships. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Let me get the ball rolling with what I think is a question on everyone's mind. The single largest question on many people's mind today is that I have a given industry, I have years of experience, how do I become a supplier to ISRO? So I'm going to get the ball rolling with my friend Mr. Reddy, because he's got to catch a flight at 6:30, right?
8:30 is a flight, but I have to leave at 6:30.
He has to leave at 6:30. So I'm going to get the ball rolling with him. And succinctly, if you can share with the community, what should a potential supplier to ISRO be ready for? What's the formula for success?
Well, basically, first of all, they have to build the core expertise in that particular domain. They need to prove themselves that yes, they have this particular domain expertise, and then if you can demonstrate this expertise to the ISRO, definitely ISRO will come forward to teach you the standards, the process to make the flight model work. That is how actually the companies usually getting entry into the space domain. As I said, when I said domain expertise, they should have even R&D background, because though some of these subsystems or components will come as a BTP to you, but unless you have a D&D background, it will be difficult to absorb the technology and to produce a product to the standards of ISRO.
That's interesting. So obviously there has to be capability and expertise, but not just that, you should have also relevantly deep roots in the R&D sector, right? You should have that strength with you. Would you want to add to that?
Sure. Again, I'll talk more in terms of the semiconductor side of things. We definitely need to build that expertise or build that track record in that area. But in my case, I've been having some challenges making that as a recurring or long-term engagement. So far the engagements I've been with the government agencies, I'm not specifically talking about ISRO. Whenever they want to do a custom chip, it's mostly a tender-driven type of exercise. And so it's been a little bit challenge, even though, okay, you have the expertise, you build a track record, you went and delivered a silicon that's working. again for the next opportunity, again you have to stand in the line and go through the process. So it is a little bit challenging in terms of that, experience.
Right. Vinod, as Centum, you all have had, I think, at least a decade plus of success, maybe 2 decades of success with ISRO. So, what has been your formula? What has been your experience that you could share with the community?
Sure. I think while I completely agree with what Mr. Reddy explained about the need to have, techno-savvy resource, both in terms of manpower and the infrastructure, but also side by side from the business aspect or the industry policy, you need to also be having a lot of patience and tenacity. I mean, initially, especially in the first 1.5 years, you will go through only experimentation, trying to understand. You will see a lot of failures, but if at that point in time, if you lose patience, you're not going to be there. So I think that is the first 2-3 years of testing time. If you go through, then you are ready to get into a longer pipeline. That's what I would say. Right. So, but then technology intensive mindset, resources, people, R&D driven thing, that's the key.
Right. No, it's interesting because I'm just thinking what Mr. Sudhir said during his speech, and one line I remember he used is, it's a narrow gateway to get in. It's not easy to get in, but once you get in, and I'm hearing the same thing echoed here. Sridhar, would you want to add to that? You are another player as Anant Tech who's been there for years and years.
I fully agree with what Vinod and Dr. Reddy told, but apart from that, another important thing is passion. And passion driven by, patriotism, something to do with for our country. That is most important because there are going to be issues, there are going to be problems. Because ISRO's requirement in terms of quality is very high. Quality space does not, forgive anybody. So the quality requirements are so high, it's very difficult for an industry to meet that. And ISRO is also quite strict in ensuring that unless otherwise the facility is established, the people who are going to work, they are trained and they pass the requisite examinations and all, they will not allow you to start working on the flight hardware. So that is going to be a challenge one has to withstand. And there will also be occasions where you may not be able to use the trained manpower because the type of orders what you will get may not be continuous. Okay, at least earlier it used to be the case, but based on what Dr. Sudhir and others have told, the amount of work what is in store is quite large. I don't think that is going to be an issue, but ultimately it's the passion which matters.
Okay, that's a great point. So not just having technical expertise and R&D capability, but a couple of you have spoken about the kind of mindset required. I think tenacity, patience, and a passion to prove that. I can almost say it has to be passion beyond profit, is what I heard from Sridhar.
Absolutely.
Am I right? I think that's what even Mr. Sudhir said. So please. Please.
Just now I told, but still I will repeat once again. That is, first they should have an interest and then the desire, okay, to do that. Second, as just now Dr. Handu told, it's not the profit which should be in mind because there are going to be times wherein you may not be making the type of money what you can expect or perhaps you will be doing elsewhere. But the positive aspects is, one is, the feeling of having contributed in a cause which even many of the international speakers told today about how India has fared, how other countries are, looking upon India, and every Indian is feeling proud about ISRO's achievements. So you are going to be a part of that. That is one aspect. Second, once you work for ISRO, you have a benchmark for yourself. Anyone who comes to you, you say, you have worked for ISRO, you have done this type of activity, because we are experiencing for our defense related activities, the type of quality standards what we have established for ISRO is so good, they don't even ask any qualification at all. Oh, if you are working for ISRO, if you are following the same, it's more than enough, it's good. That is the type of thing. So these are some of the very important advantages, and once you have the interest, definitely you will be able to overcome whatever shortcomings you will face, but at the end you will feel very happy and you feel that you have taken up the right thing. And just one word about the quantum of work also. Considering the type of missions what ISRO is planning, almost about 60 satellites in a year, similar to that even for launch vehicle and all, I don't think there will be any dearth for the quantum of work. So there may be. Okay, thank you.
Just another point to add to that is for startups, they have two things in mind. They are hungry both from the technical point of view to do something which is immediately visible, and also commercial point of view, because they need to move on and be comfortable financially. So the best way is to while we discuss that you need to be technically savvy, the best is to have space as one another area to work with apart from another sector. I think that would be a best combination I would suggest. Because if you are only in space and want to achieve some immediate successes, this is not the domain. It will test you technically, it will test your patience. So it's better that you have a combination of one or two sectors, and then you will be able to absorb the shocks of the one while the other is not okay. And I think one of the success factors that we have seen is that from last 20 years, we have been quite strongly growing in space, but when we started, space was not the only domain where we were there. I think that would be a better way to start.
Actually, that's a very good point. I like to add on top of it. See, for a startup, let's say they want to design a chip or a system, right? There is significant amount of investment goes into it. So for them to only depend on ISRO or some defense organizations to make a big money out of it, it will be difficult. So the way ISROs and defense, at least they could help is maybe mitigate their risk or reduce their pain. At least fund them through the initial R&D phase. Give them enough money to they may not make a lot of profit on it, but at least give them enough so that they can invest into their R&D and come up with some prototype or something.
Yeah, I fully agree with Vinod. Unless you are diversified into other business segment, it would be very difficult to sustain in this particular industry. I would like to advise the startup companies, except in some of the areas like software development or even some services, the other areas of ISRO business, it would be very difficult for a startup company to get into that and then to become a success. So what I suggest, because of the captive intensive market business, so I suggest startup companies to align with existing supplier and come out with the innovative ideas, form a consortium, and to grow this particular business. That would be the excellent way of reaching into the space business, so that at least your capital or your investment can be safeguarded.
Thank you for that. If I may, I'm just going to take this, at this point, take the liberty of just moving the discussion into a slightly different space. We just heard that from 4 of the Indian players, 4 people who have been involved on the indigenous manufacturing side with ISRO, we have just heard about what are the factors that help you to succeed. It just came to my mind that should we also just think about what if some of them, many of them perhaps, have had similar successes in business with space agencies outside India. What helped them to succeed there? Are there learnings there that we could bring here?
So I think that's a good point. I pretty much concur with all my colleagues over here in terms of the experience. To get into space and to get into defense industry, it's a very narrow gate. And it takes incredible amount of patience. It takes a lot of hard work. And you have to spend, there's no time, it doesn't run on an 8-hour or 10-hour clock. It runs on a 24-hour clock. and it is a very difficult environment. The investment that we need to make is significant. The processes that we need to follow are incredibly difficult to maintain. But having said that, there is one major difference between what I've noticed or heard so far that's different in USA. One of the key things that's going on in USA and that's very different from what's going on in India is USA is the first country which is actually privatizing space. So we have private space companies that we are right now working with, and one of the advantages working with the private space companies is that they allow you to actually function with them. They are mentoring you and providing you the guidance that that we need to have. But most importantly, one of the things I've heard from all of you is you're financially sacrificing. I'm very happy to say we're very profitable with private space industry. And that's one of the reasons where private space industry understands that we need to be able to be profitable to function properly as well. The investment is incredibly high, and so that requires us to be successful as well. It's part of a win-win situation. So that's a little different. And so I'm hoping that some of those things will become possible in India as well. And one of the stipulations from the government in US as well has been that all those big industries, the big corporates, they have been told that they need to provide business to mid-tier to small-tier companies, and so that it isn't just all the income is not held on by those big tier 1 companies, but actually it filters down to the mid-tier companies, and that's where the advantage would be. So now you're not looking at maybe 5 or 10 companies, you're looking at an incredible number of companies in US that are now engaged in aerospace, what we call commercial space business. So I think that's a slight difference from what I heard before.
Okay. Thank you for that, sir. Anyone else would want to add to that, your experience with space agencies outside India, just as a learning for us?
If in India working and getting successful is a factor of X, it has been at least 10x outside of India, because one, there is no natural obligation to go outside of that respective country and then go. Of course, thanks to new space, that requirement is coming up. Because every, either it's Europe or US, they are very well secured in the sense that the expectations are that these cluster of industries come from that area. So which is a hurdle when you think of an Indian industry wanting to do outside of India in space domain. Second important thing is, whatever it is, there is a small amount of, oh, this is Iesa standard, this is NASA standard, but then you are only okay for ISRO standard. We had to literally in the last 10 years do this exercise multiple times, did a chart of what Iesa wants, what NASA wants, what JAXA wants, and what ISRO wants. And to prove that, okay, 85, 88% of the requirements are common, and there are some 10, 12% where ISRO demands more, or some 5, 6% where ISRO demands slightly less. So unless this gets into the conventional mechanism of the decision-making people at all levels, it becomes extremely difficult. So if there is a patience, it is a further longer patience required. But of course, everybody is hoping for, similar to what the offset policy offered to the industries in defense, there is no offset here, but then they are hoping for the natural drive that the new space offers.
Right.
So we will also wait and watch for that.
Sure.
Yeah, so one more thing I just wanted to add. There's a lot of programs that we do which are called ITA control, which means that these are secret programs that cannot go outside United States. But there's a lot of programs that are now actually being conducted which are open to all markets. So one of the things that we are planning to do in India is a lot of the technology that we have acquired over there and technology that we have managed to learn, that's open for us to bring back here. We are willing to do that as well. And that's part of sharing our experiences from US as well. So this cross-border experiences that eventually we'll get to understand what's going on. This is a new frontier, and so, it's going to take some time, but I think that in next few years, you will see a lot more collaboration between countries as well.
Thanks a lot.
So let me add something to that. I've been hearing that when we're working with ISRO or the government organizations, you need to also show some patriotism and, more focused on sense of achievement rather than profits. I mean, it doesn't quite work that varied. I know
And this
are
one,
running
both.
successful organizations, big organizations, you have bills to pay, you have vendors to manage, and you have employees to take care of. I worked on a couple of ITAR projects in Silicon Valley as well, and there they actually expect you to make money. It's not like you
Yeah, I'm just gonna
and
say that.
make decent money. And whatever the projects I got involved here, a couple of them, you go through this tendering process. Again, I'm not criticizing anybody, the whole process is set up that way. After the tendering process, if you are an L1, they pick you up, and after that, again, they negotiate on top of that. So it's not very, successful or a model for a company, especially doing R&D projects. If you are in production and you've been a supplier, been a supplier, actually selling stuff to this thing, it may be a different game. But for R&D projects, both the projects we work for the Indian government organizations, it's been a little bit painful process for us.
If I may just briefly, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. M.V. Reddy has a flight to catch and he'll be taking leave. I'd like to request the moderator, Sanjay, to present a small token on behalf of Iesa. Ladies and gentlemen, please give him a big round of applause.
Sir.
We'd like to thank him for having
Thanks for coming.
waited
front.
to the last minute
All right.
and for joining us
Thanks
on the
a lot.
panel.
Thanks a lot.
I'm
Unfortunately,
sorry,
you had to go.
it's a very interesting panel discussion, but it was running late. So
It's okay.
Thank
No
you.
worry. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Just one point which I just wanted to clarify is that it's not that ISRO doesn't want its industry partners not to make money, or it's that they're not making money. It's the time factor which makes it, in the scheme of economies, it comes across like that. But then obviously ISRO wants its supplier to be very comfortable, successful every which way.
We have not found any space companies that are difficult to work with, but I think the pace at which United States is now working within the space industry, so the tendering process has gone away. We do not have a tender process. We do not have a selection process. And the reason is very simple. The very large tier 1 companies were asked to go out there, look for the right companies who have the right setup, the right equipment, and the right processes, qualify them, mentor them. So one of the things that we benefit from now is we do not need to compete on a basis that, there's a tender out there, there's incredible amount of paperwork, documentation we need to do. We just put together a quotation. It's a one-page document. It goes in within 2 weeks. You get the job and you move on. So the speed with which you have to execute, it requires that there has to be bilateral trust that has to be built up. And so that's part of, I think, changes that will need to be made, because when you look at any new emerging technology, for you to make progress, the speed needs to be correct, and nobody waits for us. So countries don't wait for other countries to catch up. So one of the things that I think we will learn from over here as well is if there is a good selection of companies that are certified, then I think it should be easy for all of them to get business. So there isn't one company that gets all of it. We all get equal business, and that's a good way of looking at how business needs to be done. And sure, we are profitable because they want us to be profitable. They want us to invest in new technology, new equipment, and that requires us to obviously have fundings available to do that as well.
All right. So, earlier when you were speaking, Suresh, you mentioned about the dynamics changing with new space, that in the US you have more scope in that sense. Let me put this question to the panel. Since morning we have heard several speakers talk about the new space, the coming of new space, Space 2.0, which means that as an industry we're going to move from a single large only customer to one large customer and maybe several smaller ones. There is also going to mean a change in perhaps the level of technology involved. The price points are going to be much lower, the volumes are going to be much higher. What does it mean to suppliers, established suppliers in India like yourselves, and someone new like yourself who's just come in? What does it mean to you? I'm sure there's going to be opportunities, there could be challenges too. What are your thoughts?
I think my quick thoughts are, while there are certain fundamentals which cannot be compromised, especially on the reliability aspects, but there has to be some kind of an unlearning process which you have to go through if you are a very deeply established traditional space supplier, and suddenly you can't be, mentally, dynamically tuned to the new space requirements, because new space, whatever is said, it's still work in progress. Nobody has clearly identified the rules of the game. Nobody has clearly said this is the recipe for success. It's all people are experimenting in terms of the grade of components, the reliability aspects, the calculations, the processes. Everything is, I think, is work in progress. But I think soon, the faster it is converging to a point where they also can say that this is the set of rules that we would go for. The general thought is it is almost going towards an high-end automotive kind of a thing, but it's not completely, finalized. So we are waiting and watching. The world is waiting and watching. People, many space agencies are also experimenting with different things. Some of them are ahead in some areas, and some of them are not ahead. But I think there has to be some amount of unlearning, both from technical point of view as well as commercially. Because if you are tuned to working and giving a quotation for certain set of traditional space, and you are asked for a similar set of deliveries for a new space, you need to do a lot of unlearning, lot of work to do from the component, from the ecosystem point of view, to be ready there.
But if I may just add to that, then one way if I see it, it fits in also with what you said earlier. You can't depend just on one segment of business to keep the taxi meter running on revenues. New space could be another way of adding and complementing to your revenue streams, right? And perhaps with faster turnarounds.
New space basically is expected to use some volumes.
Volumes, exactly.
Okay. First of all, ISRO is already in that direction. Thanks to Venkat Krishnan and Sudhir of ISRO, they have taken a good move in terms of establishing consortiums. Hitherto, such a system was not there. Now, this will be apart from the conventional and regular whatever production which industry is doing. There is an additional thing. They have started, for example, for PSLV. 7 PSLVs will be completely made by industry, Indian industry. Now, there is going to be a consortium. So, all the smaller players or the tier 2 and tier 3 players will be a part of that. So, this is an additional activity apart from whatever they have been doing. In fact, this is another very good move which will support and help the industry to maintain and sustain their interests.
Makes sense. Would you like to add something?
Yeah, so just not much to add, but I think made a very good point. So we call it commercial space, and one of the things about commercial space is it's using automotive grade components. Its lifespan is much smaller, but the cost of that product is significantly lower than, say, a radiation hard or a full space compliant product. And the ability to make those is significantly easy. So the barrier to doing business is much easier, and the volumes are significantly higher because it's understood that they will have a higher rate of failure. And so that's okay. Within the systems, there's redundancies built in to make sure that there's no failure on launches, but it means that there's a much higher level of volumes as they replace those products once they're used one time. But the overall cost of manufacturing each piece is at least 100-fold cheaper in terms of silicon or in terms of any components that we need to purchase. So once we get down towards automotive grade material, the sourcing of those materials on global markets is a lot easier.
Right, makes sense.
Having come the discussion of consortium, I just wanted to throw some question to the panel. Let us say you assume that tomorrow a successful consortium has been formed. Mostly consortium would be possible with tier 2 or tier 1 industries. Let us say entire shift from ISRO has been shifted to the consortium. In what role you would like to play or you are intended to play to support the MSMEs or tier 3 organizations? My specific question is, what role you can play? Rather, you have established facilities. Probably you can concentrate on increasing the volumes or supporting the facilities, but taking some services, some kind of elementary systems, either purchased or developed through MSMEs or Tier 3 organizations. What role you would like to play, or you can play?
I think I will take that question, sir. While about 20 odd years ago, you took the role of hand-holding the industry who are to some size and thing today, we need to do that. So we need to have that mix of an relatively elderly brothers approach, and also not claim that suddenly I become a prime and then I will do an entire PSLV. We need to be practical. I think that balanced scheme of things is what makes us successful, and we need to be aware of that.
Okay, great points. You know, I know before we shift on to the closing part of this, and you know, given the kind of questions which have been coming from Mr. Sudhir, as much as there is hunger in ISRO to grow the capacity and the supplier chain, I also know they keep a fairly open mind to suggestions. There's one thing they keep saying is, you guys come and tell us what will help us to move faster. And I think as Indian industry, who has been deeply ingrained with ISRO for several years, this is a great opportunity for us to share and say, if we were to do A, B, C, we would be better able to serve ISRO. Thoughts on that, ideas?
Maybe again I will divide this into two aspects. One is the technical aspect and one is the, I would not say financial aspect, but non-technical aspects, because they are differently to be dealt with. On the technical aspects, I think since there is a sudden influx of more missions and things like that, I think there is relatively a smoother transition from 5 satellite or a 5 mission per year to a 50 mission per year. It is happening quite suddenly, and then there is some disconnect, and there is a step change is something which is creating problem to the industries. What was given a 10-month kind of a delivery time, it's being asked in 3 months. Please ask in 6 months. 10 to 3 is not possible, 10 to 6 to 3 is possible. So I think that is somewhere even we would request ISRO to see how it can be relatively smoother. That is one aspect as far as technically is concerned. The other aspect on the non-technical aspects is the delays that are going through in terms of deciding the purchase order release, tendering process, all of that. They don't seem to have changed significantly with respect to the changes that you are expecting in the technical side or the quantity delivery side. I think there also, because it's always said, oh, this is something which is not within the hands of, it has to be within the framework of the government rules and regulations. Somewhere I think that also needs to be corrected. This is what I feel.
Okay.
So I like to add something in terms of the semiconductor side of things, because that's close to my heart. We recently had a meeting with Semiconductor Complex Limited, and they said they are, they went and purchased this technology 0.18 micron from Tower Jazz. And however, they don't have all the building blocks needed to make use of the technology. They are looking for partners to build some IP for them. And things like that, if ISRO can say set aside some budget and pick the right partners proactively, instead of waiting to say, hey, I need this particular chip for this particular application, and then go through this whole process of tendering again and finding that chip. So the whole process is going to delay, and end of the day you will end up actually trying to acquire that chip from some outside the country and paying 10x cost for it. So if you can proactively come up with a list of things, you may look at all your programs and say, these are the custom chips we need, these are the mixed signal IP we need, and set aside a budget for it and pick some partners like us. We are local, we have the expertise, and we can build any IP and prove it in silicon and keep it ready before you actually need it, proactively.
One of the things what industry can do to help ISRO in capacity building to meet the requirements of say about 10 to 15 or even much more satellites, whatever the requirement is, to increase their capability, their throughput, putting up some more infrastructure if they are able to do that. In this regard, I am happy to tell that Anand Technologies has taken the positive aspect it is building a new infrastructure near Devnalli and it is not only it will increase the throughput for the production, but it can also handle integration of satellites of almost about 4-ton class. A clean room is coming. Along with that, the necessary infrastructure, the paraphernalia for testing, thermovacuum testing, vibration, all such facilities are coming up. So I'm sure ISRO will be more benefited by such initiatives from other industries also.
Okay. Suresh, any points from your side?
No, I'm good.
All right, I think we've just been shown the time card, so I'm going to quickly wind this up. First of all, great points coming from all of you. I'm going to summarize this into 3 or 4 heads. Number one is what's the kind of, if you want to be a potential and successful supplier to ISRO, not only do you need to be sure of your game, but you've got to have passion beyond profit. You've got to be tenacious and hold patience till you succeed. Point number one. Point number two, don't put all your eggs in one basket. I heard that from all the participants. It's a good idea to hone your blade with the space programs, but then also make sure that you're connected or selling into other industry groups so that your taximeter and revenues keeps running. Another point that came out was that new space, very exciting, yet to crystallize, but when it eventually does, it will change the game in more ways that we can imagine. It could provide alternate sources of revenue, but I like the way you put it, Vinod. You said we need to unlearn many things and then learn them again. There were some thoughts around startups. We don't have time to build on that, but there was also some suggestions coming in on how can industry work better with ISRO. So one is, of course, that I think what I'm hearing from everyone is if we can select a set of suppliers based on their design and manufacturing technology skills, then use that pool to give them higher, longer visibility on programs so that they can build and ramp up volumes and overall cut down the process time required to close a deal. I think it will be a magic for both sides of this. With that, I'm going to wind this up. Thank you for being a great panel. Thanks a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a big round of applause for that very interactive panel discussion. I'd like to request the moderator for this session, Mr. Sanjay Andu, to present a small token of our appreciation to each of our panel members. I'd like to request Sanjay to present. Request Sanjay to present a memento to our panel members. As he does, ladies and gentlemen, please give them a round of applause once again. Last but not least, I'd like to request Mr. K.K. Giri to present a small token of our appreciation to Sanjay Handu as we thank him for moderating this last session. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we quickly move into our last session, our panel discussion for the day on the topic success stories from Indian space startups. Moderating the session is Madan Mohan Rao, Research Director, Your Story. I'd like to invite him on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please give him a big round of applause as we welcome him to this session. and I'd like to request him to introduce us to his panel members.
Hello everyone, good evening. We've been told that instead of 1 hour, we have 20 minutes for this panel, so we're going to move as quickly as we can. Let me invite Prasad Bhatt to come up on stage. Prasad, Ravi Shankar, and our third panelist as well, which would be Yashas Khan. Will you all please come up on stage? Three of you, yeah. So, very briefly, Prasad Bhatt is the head of a company called Astrom. They provide internet access in space. You heard that right, not just in traffic jams in Bangalore, but in space. We also have Ravi Shankar, who is from Accreate Labs. Ravi Shankar. Ravi Shankar is with Accreate Labs, and they are specialists in additive manufacturing, which includes things like 3D printing, among other things. And we also have Yashas Khan, who is the co-founder of Bellatrix, which specializes in propulsion systems. And many of these companies have been featured by my colleague Krishna. Where's Krishna? Just wave your hand. Yeah, Krishna is my colleague from Your Story Media. So if any of you are startups, please contact him to be featured or interviewed or put in one of the articles that we do. Quick show of hands. How many of you are startups in the audience? Oh, good. Yeah, obviously they always wait till the end. So we're going to come to the 3 or 4 key questions for this panel. In the interest of time, I'll skip some of maybe the longer bios and the longer background of the company. But maybe you can talk about, we just heard the previous panels talk about how we need quality, passion, tenacity to work with the issues of the world. But maybe you can broaden the discussion. Are you working only with Indian partners? Are you working with overseas partners? So maybe we can start with you. What do you do and how are you approaching the whole partner ecosystem?
So as discussed in the previous panel, though we are a startup, quality becomes very critical. So when we are sending something to space, we cannot compromise on any of the systems. So currently we are working with ISRO, and this is a kind of a developmental contract which we have engaged with ISRO. Apart from this, we are also looking into venturing with more global players. We are in talks with several companies both in US and Europe. And coming back to this, technology is something very important as a startup, because there are many of you who are doing manufacturing. But as a startup, it is very critical that we build something on our own, take care of all systems, starting from mechanical to all the way to electronic systems, and every small subsystem has to be taken care, and everything has to be qualified to work in space. So that becomes very critical.
Thanks for that question, Madan. Here I want to actually go back to something which is often used word, heritage. When it comes to technology, I think that's absolute necessity even for additive manufacturing or 3D printing. There we have ensured that we have the best in class additive manufacturing technology, aerospace grade from Israel and US, and software as well, Katia. But what I see as a little bit of a disappointment is companies which established heritage have moved on to innovative material, but we are still stuck on the old heritage. There's a need for mixing heritage and innovation, which these technologies provide. That's something which we have brought in, and it would be great if the industry were to leverage that.
You mean like a hybrid kind of a model? Hybrid?
No, what I mean is if you look at NASA, ULA, they established what is a heritage proven reliable material, but they've gone on to innovate with new materials, create new materials, most of which are on the additive manufacturing side when it comes to structures and user interface for manned missions. That kind of innovative material now goes along with heritage. India is still on heritage and needs to combine innovative materials into that.
Well said. How about in your case?
So our case is slightly different. We are oriented towards developing our own service at the end of our journey, where we launch our own satellites to provide internet service. So here we are on the receiving end. Am I audible? Okay. Here we are on the other end, where we are trying to talk to the suppliers, try to get the necessary subsystems and build the critical, I would say, the communication section ourselves with different components and all that. So from our perspective, the story is slightly diverse, where we are looking at getting the right quality from the suppliers. That's one thing. And we also have a different thing where we need to make sure our payload technology is well qualified. And towards that, so we have taken a staged approach where we do some testing first on ground, and then one smaller payload in space, and then take to the bigger scale. So that kind of gradual phase we are taking.
Okay. In addition to civilian space, are any of you working with defense also, or that's off limits? We can't talk about it confidential. Because today we had a lot of talk about defense and civilian space.
Bellatrix is like open to working with defense. We are looking at some projects, but there are some things going on which I cannot currently talk about.
We had a chance to work for a company in Vizag which works for the defense forces, and their requirement was a flexible material which could contain and protect power cables in a space where it could get scratched or damaged. So we were able to deliver to them an elastomer based cable master which protects and keeps the cable safe. That's when you could avoid the risk of satellites lost in space which are not communicating, power cables, communication cables, protecting them with true to form inorganic shapes.
So in our case, we won the IDEX Defense Challenge grant, under which we'll be developing some technology for Indian Navy. And we are also looking at working closely with the Indian Army, ultimately from solving the point of view of solving the communication problem in different strategic sectors.
One big question which many startups will face obviously is funding. So how did you approach funding? Did you bootstrap? Did you get funding in the beginning, or you worked somewhere else and then jumped into the space industry? What is your journey?
We unofficially started out in 2012 and we were building product bootstrapped as college students till 2015. 2015 we incorporated the company. We have been bootstrapped again for quite some time, and then we did get support from ISRO. We got a contract from ISRO and that has been helping us. Apart from that, some government grants and some award prize monies and these things have been pumping up. And just this year, just 3 months back, we did raise a private equity funding. Now things are going to get fast tracked. We are going to get into manufacturing and scaling up. So that has been quite a big push for a startup.
I would say from the previous session, what we heard both Vinod and Sridhar mention is that passion is something which is required. But for a startup, I'll tell you, it's more than passion. It's passion, their personal collaterals, and it's coming up to the right level of infrastructure so that we are space ready. Having done that, to wait for the industry to embrace you, that's the tough part.
So I'd like to bring in one other perspective. See, when we started, we first bootstrapped. We worked for a US space company for an R&D project, and that sort of gave the initial kick forward. And we did the initial hiring, and we had IAC, Indian Institute of Science, which incubated us and gave us some small grant, and that was a way forward. After that, by that time, we came up with one strategic planning where we worked out a terrestrial product apart from the space product, so that we can realize revenues faster. See, ultimately, if you want to raise private equity funding, you really need to have a shorter revenue plan. So which is what we try to do, and we are about to launch one product for terrestrial communication this year.
What are some of your plans for the coming years? You've stated your journey and where you're going, etc. But what are some specific targets or goals that you're setting for yourself?
Um, we are trying to start manufacturing and selling to the global market and the Indian market by 2021. So to do that, the first thing for us is to space qualify our propulsion systems. That is not easy. One, we are currently setting up new infrastructure. All these subsystems come with different requirements for test facilities. For example, our entire propulsion system has to be tested in vacuum at very high vacuum levels. So we have set up 3 vacuum systems within us at different vacuum levels. And then some of our propellants requires different sets of testing. So all these things are currently being set up. And we are also working towards scaling up the manpower and ensuring that we are also getting the right vendors in place who do not compromise on quality and time. As everybody stated throughout the discussions today, time is money. And we need to ensure that our commitments are met, and global expansion is what we are looking for. In by 2020, if we have to start selling to the global market, we are already on the run to look out for customers globally. So these are what we are looking
Accreate Labs is an AS9100 and ISO 9001 certified company. So for us, the future plan involves around working with someone who's NADCAP compliant. From that perspective, we are extremely lucky. We are working with a tier one global supplier in North Karnataka, where they are working with us, enabling us in the short term and looking forward to staying with them from a long-term perspective. That's something which I think is a great opportunity. I come back to the previous session where there was a talk of consortium, ISRO and the leaders who have worked with them for many years. I would say it's probably the next generation, creating the next generation for these consortiums. If they could embed innovative startups into their fabric and work with that to create innovative solutions, I would say that ISRO, one of the key things is reliability. There are n number of case studies where reliability has been enhanced by reducing component count, by plastic replacing metal. If we could have a minute, I would like to run a video. Can we have video one running, please?
Hello, AV team, video one.
FAA approved material for
Volume.
aircraft. Plastic is made from petroleum, like oil, so it burns very fast. So most plastics you can't put into an aircraft, they would never let it be there. You have to burn test everything that goes in. So we have a burn chamber, we put our parts in and we try to burn them. Most plastics would explode in the flames. This plastic all the time doesn't. And the fact that we can also print it, not just have a good material, but also print it, again, gives us that opportunity to do anything any customer might want in an FAA approved aircraft. This used to be 19 metal parts. So we reduced 19 parts to one. And this one part now doesn't have to be assembled by a person, doesn't have all of the vagaries of an assembly, won't have quality issues. It is what it is. It's very solid, very good, cheap to manufacture, and you know the quality is good.
Another point I would like to bring to the notice of this audience is 3D printing is just not just metal. Plastic has an equally important role when you're looking at manned missions which are going to come up, the user interface for the astronauts within the vehicle. That is where 3D printing and the polymers which are space grade will play a very important role. The innovations, like you saw this example, 17 metal components replaced by one polymer printed 3D point. I think there are much more innovations which we could hit for, and the technology and the expertise all here.
That's a great point. One other thing that I would like to mention from strategy, from the strategy perspective, is that as I mentioned earlier, we have a terrestrial portfolio that we have come up with called as GigaMesh, and we are getting several paid pilots so that we can generate revenue from it already, and we are going to sell it primarily to the telecom markets in the coming years. So while this is happening, this will sort of feed forward as well as boost the necessary revenue or rather investor confidence for us to raise for the space program. So that is how we are positioning ourselves, so that the both ends are met, the investors are happy and we are happy.
Okay, great. I've just been told that one of the next guests is running a bit late, maybe because of traffic. For the first time, I'm thankful to Bangalore traffic, so we can have more time for discussion. So do you think the policy environment is improving now? We heard a lot from the previous panel about governments getting more favorable, and do you see more competitions and challenges opening up venues for you? For example, I was in Munich recently and I met ASO, the European some space agency organization. So they have this Galileo challenge. They throw open challenges to everyone, etc. So is this opening up things for you in India and overseas? Things are improving?
Maybe I'll go first on that. I think the government's done everything from a policy perspective for startups. I definitely can give a thumbs up on that. However, money is hard to come by way of venture capital into the manufacturing industry, because we are not an Ola or a Swiggy. It's that kind of companies which get the capital. This is where the industry leaders have a role to play, that if they have to have a network of innovative, smart, agile startups working with them, taking in strategic investments in those startups which have the promise, that's something which will solve the problem of investment, because aerospace needs investment, it needs talent, and like what came out in the previous session, mentoring and consortiums, I would say that's absolutely what the industry needs to do. Policies are fairly good.
Just adding on to the same point, I would say when you look at policy, you have to look at it separately for a large scale industry or a fairly large MSME, maybe somebody doing several hundred crores. And you can't say the same policy which is favorable to them would also be favorable to a startup. A startup in current scenario is trying to solve a new problem. Probably all three of us sitting here are trying to solve problems which are, or trying to build technologies which are new to the country. When we are trying to do that, we need quite a bit of support and hand holding. So that means the policy should ease out things for startups, do a little bit extra. In our case, we were really lucky to have ISRO supporting us as our first customer. So we have got some advances, and they have understood and helped us with problem solvings, improving products, and somehow ISRO was fortunate. But from a policy side, now the draft space policy was up, and fortunately it might go into the next parliament session or the one after that. So with that opening up, I feel more companies like us can participate and try to put our own assets in space, put our satellites, put our launch vehicles in space. So this will start opening up things. Um, I think the government and ISRO are together trying to push this, and maybe it's a matter of time now. Maybe next 4 to 5 years things will stabilize, and once everything is set, startups will definitely come up, and as startups come, I think the manufacturing ecosystem also should come along with that. So for our new requirements, the industry will be ready.
How about in your case?
So one point which is sort of a parallel point to what Yash has said. So it does say that, I can say with confidence that India is doing a lot of innovative stuff, or a lot of new initiatives from the government side to support startups. However, I think one angle that is missing is when it comes to hardware industry, it is very hard to make things right, and it also costs a lot when you want to build a small set of units. So prototyping cost is very significant, and when you want to start selling it to somebody, so the cost, if you start comparing against an established player, the prices will be very different. So some kind of schemes where, say for the initial hand holding, if there could be some subsidies and things like that for making the product sell more, and at a later point you annihilate out and don't give it, so that the company stabilize enough, reach the volumes and things like that, that will go a long way. So this is a model which actually is being implemented and also be in practice if you go to EU or if you go to US. So that kind of models will help a lot.
Do you have any academic partners? Are the IICs and IITs of the world helping you out, and how can that be improved?
Okay, I forgot to mention this. Like Astrom, we are also their neighbors. We are also based out of IASC. So how this helped was, before IASC, we were based out of Coimbatore. We had our own place, and we were doing things. But after IASC came, or after we came into IASC, things have started accelerating. Now we have access to some few hundred crores of facilities which we had to invest in or rent out. Now we kind of get to use those facilities either at free of cost or at student pricing, which is like too good a deal for a company, right? So this kind of academic partnership is definitely helpful, not just on the test facilities. It's also the faculty that comes in with a lot of experience. When you're in an institute, you can try to take help from some faculty who is already working with ISRO or DRDO on some materials or certain preparation procedures. So that kind of comes in, and you get that external support, and not just the faculty, even the students who are working with them will try to work with you as interns if you have a very good project. So that's definitely a plus. And also when you're applying for some grants or international funding, partnership with a university is a definite plus.
I think we had to put in all the infrastructure ourselves, world class. For us, university collaborations were important because it helps you collaborate. So we have collaboration with 3 deemed universities, and we are also working with a partner who's part of a Horizon 2020 program in the US, but not in aerospace. That's in healthcare, because that's how Euro works. They identify priority areas for the Europe and get cross university industry university collaborations to take them up and solve them. So I would look forward to more industry university collaborations. I think that's required. We do have university collaboration that would help us, especially in the other segment, which is healthcare for us.
So just adding on to Yash's point, actually the our incubation at IISc has been extremely beneficial for us, primarily from access of facilities. But another biggest advantage that we realized is the brand value. So the name IISc stands out a lot, and whenever we go and say that, see, we are incubated in IISc, so we already get a certain attention. So that helps us get our foot into the door and then go further. So which is a very, very important thing, and I'm happy to say that institutes like IISc are aggressively establishing incubation centers and then getting more and more companies incubated, which is very good for the country.
I've got just a couple of questions, but I really want to give the audience a chance to ask some questions. So, and if you, especially the startups, if you've got any questions about peer support or technology, team, talent, etc., there's a good time to ask. So, my question for you now is maybe on your teams. How big is each of your startups? What are some talent challenges you're facing? How are you getting new people, etc.?
Currently, we are a 18-member team and expanding. By next 3 months, we'll be about 25. One of the major challenges we definitely see is in quality of manpower. Today we are, for one selection, we are kind of interviewing about 150 candidates. And even after that, we are not very much satisfactory. So our expectation level is here, we are getting a candidate somewhere here. So that is still not there. What we are trying to do is trying to get help from some advisors. Some real good value addition is coming in terms of team grooming through some advisors from Iesa who were retired, and currently they volunteer to help new space companies. So that passion they had in ISRO towards building new tech, that is kind of uh, they're still continuing that, and when we are building new tech, they are passionate and they want to help. And also some professors in IISc give their guidance. So we are building or training our own teams. Apart from that, I think through some efficient project management and timelines, we are able to pull it out.
More than our team, I would like to talk about our board. We have Dr. B. N. Suresh, a renowned aerospace expert who's mentoring us on the aerospace side. Then we have Dr. Tamil Mani, who's a former DG Aero, who's mentoring us on the defense side. And we have Mr. Satish, a former ISRO director with us. So I think board directions are important because it tells you where to put the investment, where to look at a long-term perspective. I think we were extremely fortunate to draw such talents to guide us. From a team perspective, we have about 12 people who are working with us full-time. And we also have an advisory team on the healthcare side, the best known doctors in the country who are working on innovations with us. So I would say that attracting talent is not too difficult if they believe in what you're trying to do. So having that vision, being able to communicate that and get that belief in the entire team, I think that goes a long way. There's a lot of talent in the country.
In fact, that's a very solid point. See, as a startup, it is very difficult to match the salary expectations that people have in the other industries. So what primarily sells from startups point of view is the vision and the goals that they can realize as part of their career. So that is what sells a lot more. And the other hard problem which we all have to live with is when it comes to certain industries, people will come, people will go. So we have to plan for the necessary redundancy so that our plans are not affected by that. So retentionship of the right talent is always a challenge in certain domains, especially things like, for example, digital domain. So where there are a lot more industries who are employing it. So such industries require a bit more, I would say, financial burden from our side to make things happen.
Any comments, questions from the audience? This is a good time. Yes. Can we get a mic here? Or, yeah, to our friend here.
Hello. Yeah. So I only spoke to Yash about one particular thing, that is about the business model in the space tech startup ecosystem. So I see new two faces here. So I want to ask you, like, because tech is one part, and when it comes to customers, the business model is an entire different ball game. Even though when I want to speak about, when I want to write it about, it's a different in-depth story altogether. So I want to know, like, how different is a business model when compared to the global customers you face? Because all I understand is like your products are not domestic, it's a global product that is serving the global customers.
What we realized at the very beginning is that marketing and reaching out to the customers would be a challenge, because currently in India we have ISRO, and now DRDO is also building satellites. Now there are few new space companies like Astrom and few other companies which are Exceed Space, and few other companies which are coming up with their own satellite buses. But apart from that, if you look at the global large scale industry, majority of the customers are from European region and the US region. Now UAE and few other countries are also in the game. When our customers are mostly outbound, companies sitting in India has to strategize such that most of the marketing efforts are taking place there. We have to budget for it. That will eat away our margins. So we have been very giving a lot of time and effort into doing this. As I told you, within the next 1 year, we are like expanding and trying to set up a very global presence. So Bellatrix will be like a global company based out of India, and eventually we'll be working with these customers. And one more from a technical side also, we have been keen on strategizing. We have been trying to understand customer requirements very diligently. What we understood very initially from our very beginning days, each satellite has a different requirement for propulsion systems. Maybe if you are a customer building a nano satellite, you need a very small thruster which is this small, and it cannot consume power greater than say 20 watts. So you need a propulsion system that meets this criteria. If you are working with Airbus Group, for example, they are building very big satellites, maybe greater than 2 tons, and they need systems which are very efficient, and they need systems which are space proven. And for these kinds of things, we cannot use the same technology. So on the technology side also, we changed our strategies, and we have been working on different product lines which fit all the different satellite sizes and customer requirements, and different mission requirements.
How about you? Yeah.
So one of the important things, just directly pointing back to your question, is that so when you want to establish a business model, please do not start with saying that I have this tech, where do I fit it? That is a wrong approach. It never works. I've tried it in my previous companies. I've failed also. So never start that way. You start with saying where is the market? What is the market? You want to say, okay, the space market is this much. So in that you partition and figure out what are all the different areas, and what all areas are already served. Most likely don't get into them. Figure out an area which is not served and it has a revenue potential. Approach that, and then you think about what is that tech you need to address the problems there. Do not start with the tech. That is what I can say.
You've already been approached, but you can add some more.
A business model, what I would like to say is that if you really see the space industry, what's happened, GE acquired 2 additive manufacturing companies at a cost of 2 billion. One on the electron beam side, the other on the laser side. If you look at Siemens, Siemens invested 30 billion pounds in UK and a services company. So what we are seeing as an alignment globally is that mid-sized companies are taking strategic investments in promising additive manufacturing services company to secure exclusive access to talent and to make sure that their confidentiality and the value of their sensitive information is well handled, and they have a priority when it comes to capability. So I think this model where mid and leading market players take strategic investments in such niche technology companies will not only bind them together but probably get the teams to be more synergistic.
Any other questions? Yeah, there's a woman who's got a question. Can you get her a mic? Tell us who you are also, so we can understand what to say.
Hello, greetings to everyone out here. So my question is, I mean, first of all, it's an honor to be here because I'm an engineering student, currently in 3rd year pursuing electronics, and I've been sitting from morning and observing what is happening. And from my perspective, I want to know this. See, space, as static as it seems, the technology of it is it's like 1,000 or 100 times more dynamic as it gets. So what my question is, as startups, like as the niche level as it gets, what is the quality, what is the type of students you're looking for? See, for example, there's Xilinx today, there's so many big guns out here, and they obviously want the top level students so that they work in the, your companies. So I have friends who've literally by-hearted codes of programs to, basically, pass out engineering. That is a struggle which I have seen. And even, for example, normal coding languages as well. So what is the type of quality you're looking for? And if you get, for example, there are coders out there, but not as passionate. So as you said, retaining the, retaining the brain power. And there are people who are not there, who might not be efficient coders, or who might not be efficient in whatever subject is there. So what is your requirement of students, and what do you see in students so that they get to be a part of your startup is what's my question.
First,
Thank you.
a round of applause for being the first woman speaker in the last 1 hour or so. We need more women in science and technology, of course. Thanks. So, what are you guys doing with terms of engaging students?
So one model that we have been successfully employing to say attract new talent is that we get them as interns first, make them understand how things are. Startup journeys are hard, it takes more effort, but at the same time it's very rewarding. So for some people it works, some people it doesn't work. So we make them undergo that for a couple of months, and then we'll see that okay, whether they fit in well, or whether they are not finding it suitable, and then that leads to the permanency of the employment.
When we look into some resumes that flow into the company, the first section we look into is directly the project section. So what are the projects you have done? Specifically, if you have mentioned what is your particular contribution in the specific projects. So the reason we try to look into this is how hands-on are you in technology, and that also along with that you also need a strong basics. Sometimes fundamentals are very important. You can we have also had some people coming for interviews from IITs, but their basics would still be poor. Maybe they would have read during the exam times, they would have had prepared, but after that, if that deep understanding was not there, that would not have stayed with them. So one is deep fundamental understanding, and second is hands-on projects. That's what we are looking.
I can only tell you one thing. I think when we take on people, we look for a few qualities. Education is important, the performance is important, because that's what you're supposed to do when you're studying. But more than that, I would say you need to be a workaholic. You need to be someone who can immerse yourself in your work, and you need to be a quick learner. So I would say these attributes matter more. In fact, I'm very happy when about a recruitment we made. Top graduate from Manipal Institute of Technology had an offer to head a to be in a global R&D immediately after college in Vizag, an American company, and we, a startup, made a pitch, and she dropped that offer to join us. I think that's where again the sense of belief comes into picture, that you can attract people provided they believe. And I would say this is where the student's perspective, why we made the offer to her was we believed, one, she was capable of immersing and a quick learner. So I think this matters.
It's very good advice for students. What's your advice for founders? For those who want to become entrepreneurs, those who are current founders, what should they look up to? What should they be looking out for?
To current founders who are looking at doing any business in the space industry in specific, right? One of the things is that don't assume that revenue will directly flow in. That will like disappoint you immediately. So it's a long game. You start playing now, you start understanding the game first, and then you set up processes, prepare for a complete, what do you say? I can't say it's like, okay, it's like you try to prepare for the entire game, entire business. And maybe 5 years down the line, once you are ready, once you have knocked through all the opportunities, then only your returns start flowing in. So if you are thinking that today you are going to design one product and tomorrow ISRO is going to buy and they are going to keep giving you continued orders, it won't be that simple or straightforward path. And second thing is, especially in the space industry, don't assume that you can do a very successful space industry if you are not personally getting hands-on into the technology. This is what my personal opinion. Maybe if you are a founder, it is better you understand at least what technology or what problem you are trying to solve and how you are trying to do it. Um, in various other industries, we see people where they are business people and they try to get some technical people and solve the problem. But maybe once that technical person leaves, your company cannot fall. So have some strong technical core. Yeah, that's what I feel.
I can give you a fail-safe advice for people who are wanting to become startups. It's not too difficult to make $1 million if you can bring in about $100 million as investment. So don't come in without a lot of money. You need that. Staying power is what matters. Your ability to raise money continuously as the company progresses and thinking out your path, what will I be in 5 years? Is that something which investors would like to invest into? I think that's something we had right in the beginning. The path can evolve, the path can change a little bit, but you still need to get there because that's what the investors have come in for. So I would say your ability to visionize, have a vision and execute on that vision and attract investment. This is what will make your entrepreneurship fairly successful.
Adding to my earlier point on one other question, so I think the first most important thing that you guys need to spend time on is define your business model thoroughly. How much ever time it takes, don't falter on that. And another important thing that I can say is that you need to define very good intermediate milestones where you can potentially make revenues. So that is very critical for you to be scalable as well as to sustain your business. And the last piece that I can say is that do not say feel bad if you fail. It's good. You learn from it, move on, build another company.
Okay. So what about IP, intellectual property and all that? You both mentioned it's important to attract investors. So do investors look at things like IP, patents and things that you both of you have, I think all of you have filed some patents or something, right? So how has it helped you? Is it a good strategy? Is it a painful, long drawn out process, etc.?
IP is all that a startup has to like raise money initially, right? Especially when you're talking to an investor or you're pitching to an investor that you're going to get money from space. If you're building a microwave oven, for example, and you have the product ready, you show it, give him a demo and say, this is what my product can do. These are my customers. There are so many number of customers who are going to cook every day. This is going to be my revenue. It is very easy for a investor to understand what he is putting his money into. It's end of the day his hard-earned money and he cannot put money in the dark. When you are explaining about space technology, especially in India, the awareness about what is happening in the industry is very limited. When you talk of satellites, maybe people will talk about ISRO. Beyond that, they don't know anything much about satellites and space industry. Maybe they talk of rockets, satellites, and nobody knows what goes into these systems. When me as Bellatrix, I say I build propulsion systems, which is a subsystem that goes into satellites, and my technology kinds of saves so much money for my end customer. Uh, then they start asking who is your end customer. I say these companies in these kinds of areas. It is everything is like verbal. You can't show or you can't give that kind of confidence. When these things are very critical, I feel IP is what actually drives you. You build a technology and
I meant stuff like patents. No, so are patents licensable? Can you make money from patents? That kind of stuff.
Okay, that way. The space is like a area where you could find multiple applications. Maybe you would have heard this. So most of the technologies that were built during the Apollo's time, they have gone into various other commercial applications and they have generated a lot of revenue. So today if you are building one technology, maybe some sort of imaging for satellite which could do a very high resolution, you could scale it down and do it for maybe your normal cameras or implement such kind of solutions for domestic development, these kinds of things. So IP definitely drives a lot of
Israel,
Before I
as
answer,
one
can
of
we
the
have
smallest
video,
countries
please?
on Earth, is barely visible from space.
Video. Can we have the second one?
And yet,
What's it about?
Again, about innovation and IP, and while it comes up, yeah, I think.
Demands the very highest standards in repeatability of all of our processing,
which includes additive manufacturing. On the Orion capsules right now, some of the initial parts that we've targeted in the collaboration with NASA for insertion of ESD tech are the docking hatch panel covers. ESD stands for electrostatic discharge. It's the buildup of static electricity on the part. What we've been working with Stratasys and bringing online here at Lockheed Space is the ability to now print a polymer that is performing at electrostatic level, particularly for something like the Orion capsule, where we have a responsibility to the astronauts on board the capsule. We have the need to produce high quality parts every time without failing. Additive manufacturing is definitely a disruptive technology. You're able to produce parts that aren't able to be produced any other way. Organic base weight demands the very highest standard.
Can you kill the video? Yeah, I think why I showed this is innovation has to come on the backdrop of an application. What we've already seen in the US is that there's a disruptive technology creating new elements, and in India we definitely thought that actually I was not a believer in products. I was more a services man, but my co-founder Ravi Shashadri insisted that products and patents matter. We filed for 2 patents, and I'm happy to say that the first patent is supported by Invest India on the Agni platform, and currently Kalam Institute is commercializing that by licensing that for manufacturing with a licensing fee and a royalty kind of model. So what I have to say is definitely you can make money, appropriateness of the product and access to the market. Some of this enablement we are seeing that it's happening in the country. If that enablement wasn't there, this patent would have been a waste. But I think patents linked to opportunity through enablement, definitely there's money to be made, but more importantly, there's fame to be made, and that could be your company's future.
So just building on it, it is important to file patents. It adds a lot of value and credibility to the company. But at the same time, I think another dimension that for startups, specifically for startups that I need to tell, is that it does cost a lot. And especially when you want to cover it across geographies, you will have to file it in, let's say, India, you have to file somewhere in EU, somewhere in Africa, somewhere in US. All of that ultimately adds up to a significant amount. It's not a small amount. So when you start filing patents, plan it very well so that you have something which is very substantial, which you can, let's say, potentially commercialize, either yourself or by selling it to somebody else. Plan that out upfront.
I know there were some lawyers in the audience earlier. Are the lawyers still here or they've gone beyond their billable hours? Okay. Any other questions? Any comments, questions? Okay, maybe one last question over there, and then I have the final one.
Have led the way to outstanding
Tell us who you are also.
Resolution electro-optical satellite, utilizing from visible light, identifying of people's its most important resource is its human resource, health, that's currently competing for Google's Lunar X.
So I have met a lot of customers like millionaires, billionaires. They have a requirement. They will come up with very energetic in a starting way. When we are going to the POC, everybody is asking for free POC. As a startup, getting a funding is very difficult. So anybody can address how to overcome this problem as a startup.
Maybe a short word on that. I tell you, it's killing. If a client who's 1,000 crore kind of turnover asks you to pay for the first prototype, the question here comes, who's the business entrepreneur? Is this the startup or the established company which is running a space business? I think that's very disappointing. However, like there was an example, I think, from one of the gentlemen in the previous panel, that it's these companies plus the consortium which are running that who have to source innovation, who have to enable that innovation. So I would say that you have to find that magic combination where a client values the talent, values the innovation, and helps you recover at least your cost and lay the step where you could then earn your margins. It's difficult, but you have to find people who appreciate value creation and innovation.
So just directly addressing your point, the simplest thing that you can do is that you just put a question back to them. Okay, I'll do a free POC for you. Can we sign an agreement right now saying that if this is successful, you will give me, say, X volume? Do that, and then that will give you an understanding whether they are really serious about it or not. So if they are signing that agreement, please go ahead and make the free POC. It is worth it.
So we are working with a lot of customers, same thing. So nobody is going to for sign up, nobody. They need free POC, free POC, free POC.
Yeah.
Even though big companies also, they are not supporting for startups. So I would like to request to the billionaire, millionaire companies, at least they could put on a money out of 10 rupees, 2 rupees also they are not going to invest on the POC. If they are giving promise me on 2 rupees, so all startups will come and do that all POC here.
Okay, that's like a request to the industry, sort of. Yeah. But you agree with that? Or?
I didn't get your question.
No, the question was about the industry one.
So one thing I don't know how you are currently pitching, but what I insist is, since you are working for 3-4 years now already, try to strengthen your pitch. Try to project yourself as a pretty big company and try to list out all the previous customers you have done, you have already worked with, and explain about some projects. With your presentation itself, they should get a sense of confidence that you are not a group of young people trying to propose a new project, but you have actually taken up, successfully delivered and demonstrated some projects. So that might slightly help is what I feel. But as you grow bigger as a company, I think this problem will not be there.
I would like to give a slightly different spin to that. If I were to put myself in the role of a consortium or a tier one manufacturer, to say, why is that happening? I think it's happening because when you look at innovative technology, the management has to drive innovation adoption in their companies. I have seen enough examples of startups hitting a dead wall when it comes to proposing innovations and technologies. I would say the key thing for leaderships to do is make sure that they drive innovation adoption in every stream of the business, and that's one reporting they should get on a monthly dashboard. And that approach will then tell people down the line that innovation matters, innovation is measured, and probably enable more and more partners in the ecosystem to be able to engage in a viable manner with those companies. So this is where I would say the difference between some of you who might become the leaders in the future in a decade from now. What might make that is how well you drive innovation in your company and how well you make this collaboration happen. I would say leadership is one element which can change this behavior of how you support innovation in your ecosystem.
I'd like to end maybe with some discussion on inspiration. No, Elon Musk has done very creative things like put his car in space and that kind of stuff. There's also a big difference between the Hollywood science fiction view of space versus the nitty-gritty of what you guys are going through, right? So how do you find inspiration in the kind of work that you do? Does it come from astronomy, stargazing, Star Wars movies, a personal narrative from your life? What do you say?
Maybe I'm not the right person to answer this because my colleague and co-founder Rohan is like the driving force behind most of the tech. From what I see, our entire team and Rohan, they are all very passionate on creating some sort of impact from what they try to do. So the reason we took up the startup route was because we wanted to see where our efforts are going. Maybe if we were in a typical corporate job, we would be one among several people trying to build something. Maybe I would be part of one radar system. I would be one of 50 people working on the radar system. Now if we are doing these things as a startup, we are seeing where we are going, and so we are in total controls, right? That kind of, it's like a dopamine creator, so that will kind of give you that push.
It's addictive. Okay, good. Yes.
Our inspiration comes from the things which have not been done. When I look at the things which have already happened the world over, that the fact that the aerospace industry does not see plastics and polymers as aerospace material. Rocket labs in New Zealand, 80% 3D printed rocket, a launch every week of the year. Sub 50 million space launch. I mean, these are the things which are redefining the industry. Then if you look at relativity space, again, even from an engine to everything, substantially 3D printed. When you look at all of that, and where we have the gaps where nothing's happened in India, that's the area where we see that if we stay at it, if we have the right strategic investor from the industry working with us, some of that we could enable. That's what inspires us at Create Labs.
What keeps you going?
So I'll just talk about some things that have happened in my past. So I did my master's and PhD at Indian Institute of Science. So during my master's program, there was a satellite program run exclusively by students. And I participated in that, and I also at some point I led that activity. So that was sort of an inspiration point to say that, okay, space is something which is very nice and very, feels very good to work on. So that was a starting point. And at some point, at the later point of that, around 2009 or so, it just dawned upon me that, see, as a civilization, we are growing in enough numbers. There's a point where it will saturate. We don't have space on Earth. We need to move out. And so space is an important thing to start working on. And I don't think we'll be able to move out very soon. It may take 50 years. And after my previous two startups, and some sense set in, and then I saw that, okay, the first problem to solve is for people on ground, and then we can look at the later problems of exploration. So that is how sort of it went on, and I'm fundamentally a curious person in engineering and in other things. So I tend to sort of deep dive and then understand things and then do things. So that is sort of my inspiration to get into the space sector as such.
Any recommendations for a reading list? What books are you guys reading for, technical books, philosophy, spirituality, whatever? Reading list for the end of the day, sort of. The weekend is coming up. What should they go and buy tomorrow on Flipkart?
Yeah, definitely a embarrassing question. I don't read these days, so maybe I'll pass on the question.
The one thing I would like probably the industry leaders here to read about is why organizations look outside for innovation and inspiration. If you look at NASA, their moon habitat was not an in-house exercise. They ran a competition, and finally there were 2-3 finalists who won and had the concept and architecture. Almost all of that is 3D printed. So a habitat on the moon inspired by an external agency executed for NASA. So inspiration always comes from outside. So I would say look for things which inspire you and thereby your organization. Could be anything.
So these days I'm reading less, but one of my all-time favorite book is The Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy by Douglas Adams. I think you guys, if you have not read it, it's high time that you should read it. That is something on a fun reading, and also at times, even though there are a lot of funny things there, some things are very, very intelligently worded. One of the things that I always remember is that the act of walking is a way of continuously falling towards ground but not hitting it. Things like that. So very, very funny, very inspirational things are there. I think you should go and read that. Thank you.
One free taught book I read was called Life 3.0 by Max Tegmark. He's a professor at MIT, etc. And he says that in X thousands of years, whatever, in the course of evolution of the sun, is going to swallow up the earth and everything else. So the human race will be gone as we know it. So we all have to get out to space. And if we can't make it to space, we have to create AI to carry on our intelligence. So it is a double whammy. We have to do space and we have to do AI at the same time. So now I've got to run because I've got a flight to catch. So I think I'll hand it back to our MC over here. And thank you all very much for your questions. A big round of applause for these outstanding startups who are putting up with amazing hardships to really get ahead into the space race. Thank you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a big round of applause once again. I think they did a fabulous job. On a very light note, Madan, you said you were given 40 minutes and you were disappointed, saying that you'd have to crunch it to 20, but in the end you got a full hour.
I got my hour back. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, I'd like to request Madan Mohan to present a small token of our appreciation to our panel members this evening. Please give them a big round of applause for that brilliant last session. I'd like to request Giri from Iesa to present a memento to the chair, Madan Mohan. We'd like to thank him for moderating that last session on success stories from Indian space startups. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to request all of you to remain seated. We'll be starting off with the Spacetronics and Deftronics 2019 awards in a couple of minutes from now. We'd like to request you to please be seated, and we'll start in just a moment. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome all of you to the last part of this event, the Spacetronics and Deftronics 2019 Awards. I'd like to request you to please give yourselves a big round of applause. We'd like to thank you for being an amazing audience, and sincerely thank you for staying back right till the end. We'd also like to extend our profound apologies to Her Excellency Dana Kush, Consul General, Consulate of Israel. She's been here very patiently waiting for over an hour. We'd like to thank you, ma'am, once again. Apologize, and we'd like to thank you for your understanding and good spirit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, these awards this evening, the Spacetronics and Deftronics 2019 Awards, aim at recognizing outstanding individuals and role models in innovation and excellence in the electronics and design services ecosystem in the fields of space technology and defense industry. We are indeed honored and privileged to have with us this evening Dr. E.V. Ramna Reddy, IAS, Additional Chief Secretary of Government, Department of Information Technology, Biotechnology and Science and Technology, Government of Karnataka. I'd like to request all of you to please give him a huge round of applause. I'd like to request Mr. Jitendra Chadha, Chairman, IESA, to escort Dr. E.V. Ramna Reddy to the stage. I'd like to request Mr. Jitendra Chadha to welcome Dr. E.V. Ramna Reddy with a bouquet. We're also honored to have with us this evening Her Excellency Dana Kush, Consul General, Consulate of Israel. I'd like to request Dr. Satya Gupta, Vice Chairman IESA, to escort Her Excellency onto the stage. And I'd like to request Dr. Satya Gupta to welcome Her Excellency Dana Kush to this event with a bouquet. I'd also like to invite on stage Mr. Anil Kumar, past chairman, IESA. I'd like to request him to. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our chief guest for the day, Dr. C.N. Ashwath Narayan, Deputy Chief Minister and Minister of Information Technology, Biotechnology and Science and Technology, Government of Karnataka. He's here. I'd like to request all of you to please welcome him to this event. I'd like to request Mr. Anil Kumar, past chairman, IESA, to welcome our chief guest onto the stage. I would like to request Mr. Anil Kumar to welcome our chief guest for this evening with a bouquet. Dr. C.N. Ashwath Narayan, Deputy Chief Minister, Karnataka. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Her Excellency Dana Kirsch, Consul General of Israel to South India, to address this gathering.
Namaskara. Good evening. I'm very proud of you. I know it's been a long but fascinating day. I just been able to enjoy being with you for the last hour, but it is really exploring new frontiers, and it is a huge honor for me to represent Israel and to share the stage with the Deputy Chief Minister of Karnataka and IESA officials and leadership that gathered us all here today. I'm happy to be in this kind of timing because it's a two-day conference. It's the second conference that I've been able to take part for this important organization. And it's 2 days that it's space and then it's blending into defense. And I know that it was woven together throughout the day as well. And both defense and space are two verticals that Israel and India are really exploring new frontiers. And intelligent electronics will provide us the tools to be able to explore those frontiers and basically overcome the challenges and get to new heights on the land and in space, both. I think that we've seen before, a few minutes ago, a movie about ISRO. And I know that you had been enjoying from morning time the pride of ISRO and its accomplishment. I would like to take this floor to brag a bit about ISRO partner in Israel. Our equivalent of ISRO is our Israel Space Agency. And just 2 years ago, your Prime Minister Narendra Modi, came for the first time, an Indian Prime Minister come to Israel. And in this visit, they had, our Prime Minister and your Prime Minister had signed 7 agreements. 3 out of them were in space. So this unique partnership between India and Israel, between ISRO and our ISRO, between our ISA, is a very unique a component of our partnership, and I would like to share this few minutes about what do we do back home when it comes to space, and then we can dive on into what we are doing today and how we are exploring new frontiers both in space and in defense in the future.
Israel, as one of the smallest countries on Earth, is barely visible from space. And yet, the Israeli Space Agency's innovative and groundbreaking technologies have led the way to outstanding achievements in the field of space exploration. Israel is among the few countries in the world which develop, build, launch, and operate satellites in space. Geographical and safety constraints have forced Israel to launch satellites in an opposed trajectory to what is customary in the world, which drove the scientific community in Israel to be creative and excel in order to achieve high required performance for small satellites. The Israeli space industry has recorded many achievements, such as the development of communication and Earth observation capabilities, high-resolution electro-optical satellites, and advanced synthetic aperture radars, which can also be used at night and under all weather conditions. The Venus satellite, a joint effort with the French Space Agency, is a microsatellite with electric propulsion, offering superspectral remote sensing capabilities of the Earth, utilizing 12 different spectral bands, and thereby enabling environmental monitoring as well as assisting in precision agriculture. The next generation of satellites will offer hyperspectral remote sensing, using 240 different spectral bands, covering the full spectrum from visible light all the way up to 2.4 microns. This will allow for molecular level monitoring of vegetation, environmental pollutants in bodies of water and on land, and the monitoring of quarried substances. The Technion, Israel's Institute of Technology, is currently working on the first of its kind experiment, in which it intends to design, launch, and prove flight capability of three-formation nanosatellites. This nanosatellite will enable, among other things, the locating and identifying of people at risk. Israel's ground mobile broadband services, based on satellite communication systems, have already saved many lives around the world during natural disasters and will be visually enhanced as part of the collaboration with the UN Spider Initiative. Israeli space technology and contributions can even be found as far as Mars, as part of the Curiosity project, where a unique sensor cooling system developed in Israel has been successfully integrated. Israel believes its most important resource is its human resource. As part of the startup nation, Israeli children grow up in a highly creative environment. From an early age, they're encouraged to dream and are supported in developing all the necessary intellectual tools to make those dreams come true. Not just through classroom work, but through hands-on experiences. Many children dream of becoming astronauts, like Ilan Ramon, an Israeli astronaut on board the Columbia Space Shuttle. Some young entrepreneurs are part of the core team of Space IL that's currently competing for Google's Lunar X Prize. University graduation percentage rates in Israel are among the highest in the world. Israeli academic institutes continue to push the envelope and develop futuristic technologies such as quantum computing, developments which will lead to significant scientific breakthroughs in the decades to come. 8 Nobel Prizes were won by Israeli scientists thus far. As a small country, Israel is gearing its space industry towards large-scale collaborations. Many of Israel's technological advancements are meant to integrate with multinational projects for various organizations and communities. The Israeli Space Agency and industry will continue to welcome international collaborations that will help work towards a prosperous future for humankind. Towards an era with no limits, where micro turns to macro and nano to astro.
Thank you so much. This morning I started a day with learning the vision for Karnataka at large and for Bengaluru in specific by His Honorable Deputy Chief Minister and Dr. Reddy, the vision of innovation in Karnataka at large and in Bengaluru in specific, and the preparation to the Bangalore Tech Summit that I think is the next big thing after this summit that we are going to enjoy, that we are enjoying now and at the midst. The first time I had the honor to meet the Deputy Chief Minister was 2 weeks back on a similar stage with a similar organization called Indian Technology Engineering Congress, which is basically, I imagine that some of the members here may be members also in this organization as well. And it was the 4th, it was 3 days before the 7th of September. And we all know what we were all hoping and looking for on the 7th of September. On the 4th, both of us had the honor to really rejoice our space partnership with looking for the future and basically highlighting the partnership of having 75 nanosatellites that will be sent into space in 2022 when India celebrating its 70th Independence Day. And this is a partnership between Israel and India and other countries. I think that both of us were very hopeful that Vikram will land safely on the moon. But I think that, and I know that you had discussed it throughout the day, and Vikram, I know it means victory. And we were hoping for a victorious day of India landing on the moon. But very similar to Israel, that in April had experienced the same thing of not being able to rejoice this Vikram, to rejoice this victory. I think that our unique partnership between India and Israel is also one of the foundation is experience those failures, because those are the ones that will bring us forward to conquering new frontiers. And as I'm confident that back home, Genesis, which is the name of our satellite that did not get to space, the moment after we understood that he's not getting, there is Genesis 2. I know that there will be Chandrayaan 3, and I know that both our nation will get to space, and it will rely a lot of, from the contribution on each and every one of you, whether it's students of engineering, whether it's young startups that are doing exactly the next things of how we can improve our life on land and in space. I want to finish with a story that also is, at the end of the day, deals with innovation. Today, while we are here in the midst of our conference, back home, it's the last day of our innovation conference, the DLD Innovation Conference in the heart of Tel Aviv, one of the major cities in Israel. And I want to take you back 2 years, JC? 18 months, but who's counting? 18 months ago, Israel celebrated its 70th. We are always 1 year after you guys. So we chose to celebrate it by marking an MOU with Intel India. The JC is not just a chairman of Iesa, is also a leader in Intel India, that you are so proud of, another major company that is based here in Bangalore. In a very similar manner, the first R&D center of Intel outside of the States was in Israel. In many ways, both the center, both Intel India and Intel Israel are very much alike. I just want to use one story from that, is that what we have done is chose, as I mentioned, to sign an MOU with Nivruti Rai, that I think another congratulations is that she has been chosen as one of the most influential women by Forbes India, right? And so one of the people before me was commending a lady engineer that is now her student here. You have amazing leaders that are basically running the show when it comes to electronics and semiconductors as well in India, and I think it's another source of pride for India. So what we've done is, to celebrate our 70th Independence Day, we had shared this stage with Nivruti and with JC and signed an MOU to push our ecosystems forward when it comes to hardware, to utilize the lab maker of Intel India, to push startups that it's much harder. You know that it's easy to, in software industry, it's easier to go to the stages and basically reach a product in their hand. You know, for when you have to validation and you have to have so many processes, it takes much longer. So we chose to push this forward. And what we have done is we have done pitching contests when we pushed Indian startups to pitch their case. And we've done 3 pitching contests up to now in the past 18 months. And the last one is now, together with another high-ranking official of Intel, in Israel, celebrating innovation in this conference in Israel, an Indian company that is utilizing AI to find new solutions when it comes to emotions, transferring them to the e-commerce ecosystem, and so on and so forth. So I think this is a small story that tells how important is our partnership when it comes to space, when it comes to land, and when it comes to defense that you are going to dive into tomorrow. I know that I cannot share with you many of the success stories that have been in between India and Israel when it comes to defense. I can just tell you that I had the honor to be launching some of those JV that had been forging even here in Bengaluru, and it is a very, very source of pride of the unique partnership between Israel and India. So I think that at the end of the day, if I'm looking at the theme that the ISEA had chosen for us, and the emphasis of intelligence, and the emphasis at the end of the day of education, on forging our future and expanding to new frontiers, I'm adding our eye to the multiple eyes that exist on this plaque of the title, and it's not just ISEA, and not just India, and not just ISRO. It's, if I may add in Israel as well, and I'm very proud of Israel and India partnership when it comes both to space and when it comes here on the land, and I'm looking forward to having more and more success stories that we can celebrate together to have better future for our children and our grandchildren together. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Her Excellency Dana Kirsch for that address, for her words of encouragement and reassurance, and for her testimony of the enduring partnership and friendship between our two great nations. I'd like to now request Dr. E.V. Ramna Reddy, IAS Additional Chief Secretary to Government, Department of Information Technology, Biotechnology and Science and Technology, Government of Karnataka, to address the gathering.
Honorable Deputy Chief Minister, Government of Karnataka, Dr. Ashwath Narayan, Sri Jitendra Chadda, Chairman IESA, Dr. Satya Gupta, Vice Chairman IESA, Mr. Anil Kumar, former Chairman IESA. I am really happy to be here on the second edition of Spacetronics and sixth edition of Deftronics, and I am also glad to be part of the prestigious Spacetronics and Deftronics Awards 2019. Why I say I am happy to be here is I was also part of ISRO for about 5.5 years. From 2004 May to 2009 November, I was on deputation to ISRO in ISRO headquarters Bangalore. I was director in the Department of Space and then Joint Secretary of Finance in the Department of Space. So ISRO is a great organization, and entire country is proud of this organization. I congratulate all the awardees, and I would like to mention that IESA and Government of Karnataka have taken several initiatives for the development of ESDM, Electronic System Design and Manufacturing industries in Karnataka. In fact, I think last Saturday, Mr. Jitendra Chadda and Dr. Satya, though it was a holiday, they met me, and with so much passion they wanted to develop this industry in Karnataka. I am really thankful to them that they have shown so much interest to work with Government of Karnataka. We, along with the IESA, have done a lot of things. Just to mention a few, in December 2018, Department of IT, Biotechnology and IESA, we have started the Semiconductor Fabless Accelerator in Bangalore. The idea is it's the first of its kind in the semiconductor space in India, and the idea is to incubate early stage startups and accelerate the existing fabless SME to the next level by providing them funds, market and mentors. In fact, in 2014 and 15 itself, Karnataka has set up a Karnataka Semiconductor Venture Fund with a 100 crore corpus, where Government of Karnataka has contributed 25 crores. Last year, state government has started 9 industrial clusters in 9 districts. Out of that, 3 were in the ESDM space. 1 in Chikballapur focusing on mobile phones, Mysore on printed circuit boards, and Chitradurga on LED lights. We have also set up an ESDM cluster and common facilities center in Mysore in about 5,000 square feet of space for enabling testing and for setting up testing tools and equipment. We are also initiating setting up of a VLSI incubation center to provide incubation facility to VLSI and design startups. In fact, I was very happy to hear from Mr. Jitendra Chadda on that day that 40% of the global chip design takes place in Bangalore. So this is the status of Bangalore. And we were also one of the states, maybe first state to come out with ESDM policy in 2017. And our aim was to stimulate the growth of about 2,000 ESDM startups during this period and create at least 20 lakh new jobs by 2025. I once again congratulate all the awardees, and I pledge Government of Karnataka's support to the Iesa in taking the ESDM industry to greater heights. And before I conclude, Honorable Minister has asked me to make one announcement. In fact, there was a suggestion from IESA that Government of India Ministry of IT has changed its name to MIghty, Ministry of Electronics and IT. So Honorable Minister said, you announced that we will also make Department of IT in Bangalore as Department of Electronics and IT, so that we can give impetus to electronics industry in Karnataka. We will work together with IESA and take this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your encouraging words. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a very exciting day today. We'll now present a small, very short video that sort of like summarizes the proceedings of the day. Could we have the video play, please?
Space defense is crucial and is advanced technology. India has designed anti-satellite missile to neutralize satellites. It is a three-stage BMD interceptor missile. The radar identifies the target and tracks the satellite movement. The missile is launched from the launcher. Traveling at high speeds, the stage separation happens. The ground radars guide the missile in its path. The heat shield separated. The missile locks onto the incoming satellite. It hits the target and neutralizes it successfully. The anti-ballistic missile is crucial technology for the nation.
Space defense technology is a very decisive technology, and India has achieved this with the new anti-satellite missile technology. The BMD interceptor missile. With this technology, the radars target the satellite in low Earth orbit. Radar sends the command and the missile launches. Missile travels with high speeds. Missile locks onto the target and annihilates the satellite. With this technology, India is number 4 in the world who has this exclusive technology.
India has achieved crucial technology in space defense. BMD interceptor missile. Its task is to detect satellites in low Earth orbit and protect the nation from them. Missile lifted off from Orissa coast. Missile hit its target on the Bay of Bengal. Technology of the future. BMD interceptor.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we're indeed honored and privileged to have with us this evening our chief guest, Dr. C.N. Ashwath Narayan, Deputy Chief Minister, Karnataka, and Minister of Information Technology, Biotechnology, and Science and Technology, Government of Karnataka. I'd like to now request him to address this gathering, and as he comes forward, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome him once again to this event.
Good evening, sir. Iesa is organizing a annual event with regard to the electronic industry and the Deftronics. And Bangalore has been the pioneer in regard to the electronics field. starting from the public sector of Bharat Electronics and DRDO, all these companies were based in Bangalore. So we are lucky enough that Bangalore and Karnataka has been a pioneer in the field of electronics. Today, with lot of challenges and in the challenging environment, to sustain and grow, lot of collaboration should happen between various stakeholders. In this direction, Karnataka government always will work along with the Iesa to encourage and facilitate all the support required with regard to the policy and other initiatives. Already our Principal Secretary, Dr. Raman Reddy, has mentioned about the initiatives taken up by the Department of Electronics and ITBT with regard to the promotion of electronics, with regard to the Center of Excellence or startups or incubation centers. We'll come ahead, we'll come forward with a lot of support, whatever required for the industry. And I've been discussing with Mr. Anil and Gupta ji, Jitendra Chedda ji, with regard to had a first meeting with regard to the Iesa industry, what kind of challenges they've been facing, and what kind of support system is required to promote the ecosystem that can grow in a bigger way in the Indian market, in the world market. The target what we are having for the Indian economy, 1 trillion market, 1 trillion market for the digital economy. How best we can have our share in this economy. For that to happen, what all decision has to be taken or encouragement has to be given. They are putting across their thoughts. It was something new for me. So I started hearing to them and I said, whatever we can do, we'll be willing to support and make sure that Karnataka will become the center of hardware manufacturing with regard to the semiconductors or the chip manufacturing. It's a very challenging area, but still whatever we can support and come out with a hardware park in the city of Bangalore or surrounding Bangalore, will come out and will support with regard to the viability gap fund or any other things which can encourage the development of the electronic industry so that the consumption in Indian market also will increase, because all the public spaces and the government, we need to promote a lot of technology, and technology, if it has to be promoted, hardware also is required. So hardware portion with regard to the consumption, it has been very, very meager. We need to expand in a bigger way, which we are willing, so that it can improve a lot of quality and system can emerge very stronger, so that we can reach out to the very society very strongly with regard to the space electronics, space research or space satellite or the ground level, any other direction. As our Dana Krush was speaking about the satellite collaboration with the Indian Technology Congress, even I was there that day along with Dana. The Israel has come forward with the collaboration and support. Now we are able to see the students in their college, they are able to develop the student satellites. Nearly 75 student satellites have been developed in 75 engineering colleges by the students itself. And it will be launched by 2022 or 2023. Yeah. So in 2022 or 2023, we are planning to launch it by the students, by the self-funding by the various institutions. This kind of collaboration will take us a long way in the institution level and the academia level. Even from the electronic industry, you are most welcome to collaborate with all our institutions, and we'll make, because that's a better place where we can make more things happen and better physical facility, resource, and we can increase the quality of education and make our future generation to look high and visualize many more good things by strengthening their thoughts and capabilities. That's the best thing we can do, collaborating, and along even government will work in this direction to encourage this kind of development of newer products and collaboration. We'll be very willing to support all of your thoughts or ideas, initiatives. We'll be along with you and we'll do our best to, to make sure we'll be always ahead of other competitors and other areas where we can do better. And this is the assurance I can give from government. And will not be keeping away from you. Whatever best initiatives or encouragement can be given in any circumstances, we'll be willing to do that. And already our principal secretary and additional chief secretary has made an announcement which was close to your heart regarding ITBT. Only ITBT is there, the electronic was missing. They mentioned me in the previous meeting when they met me. Then said, what is there in the name? We should encourage and we should include it. And our additional chief secretary readily agreed, and we took this decision that we should make an announcement here and we'll come out with a formal order. Even the name makes a big difference. The space, we should not go unidentified. Without the hardware, nothing works. With the software, nothing works. Without the hardware, there cannot be any software. So hardware has to be given a lot of emphasis, because it's all started in Bangalore with the hardware, then came the software. So taking much of your time, I just like to say one thing: we are with you. We'll do our best in whatever possible way. We should always have the pursuit of excellence and cutting technology. For that to happen, we need a lot of encouragement, support system, which we are here as a government will give complete encouragement. Even the government of India will be able to mobilize the support from government of India. Even the government of India is very keen. I was told by all my friends that even the government of India is very keen to encourage the digital technology, electronics industry. We'll work along with them and get fullest support in the state of Karnataka. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. C. N. Ashwath Narayan, for those encouraging words, for your continued patronage and your leadership. Sort of pretty much summarizing a lot of the topics and discussions that all of you were privy to. So could we have the video play again, please?
भारत ने आज अपना नाम अंतरिक्ष महाशक्ति स्पेस पावर के रूप में दर्ज करा दिया है। अब तक दुनिया के 3 देश अमेरिका, रूस और चीन को यह उपलब्धि हासिल थी। अब भारत चौथा देश है जिसने आज यह सिद्धि प्राप्त की है। हर हिंदुस्तानी के लिए इससे बड़े गर्व का पल नहीं हो सकता है। कुछ ही समय पूर्व हमारे वैज्ञानिकों ने अंतरिक्ष में, स्पेस में 300 किलोमीटर दूर LEO, लो अर्थ ऑर्बिट में एक लाइव सैटेलाइट को मार गिराया है। LEO, लो ऑर्बिट में यह लाइव सैटेलाइट, जो कि एक पूर्व निर्धारित लक्ष्य था, उसे एंटी सैटेलाइट ASAT मिसाइल द्वारा मार गिराया गया है। सिर्फ 3 मिनट में सफलतापूर्वक यह ऑपरेशन पूरा किया गया है। मिशन शक्ति यह अत्यंत कठिन ऑपरेशन था, जिसमें बहुत ही उच्च कोटि की तकनीकी क्षमता की आवश्यकता थी। वैज्ञानिकों द्वारा सभी निर्धारित लक्ष्य और उद्देश्य प्राप्त कर लिए गए हैं। हम सभी भारतीयों के लिए यह गर्व की बात है कि यह पराक्रम भारत में ही विकसित एंटी सैटेलाइट ए सैट मिसाइल द्वारा सिद्ध किया गया है।
A soundbite of the Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi addressing the space and defense fraternity and, of course, the nation at large. Before we move into the awards, I'd like to just once again quickly remind you that today was Spacetronics, and as most of you know, tomorrow is Deftronics, and we'll be starting with our morning session at 9:30 sharp. We have our chief guest, Dr. Tessie Thomas, Missile Lady herself, who will be addressing us. So we'd like to once again remind you that if you haven't registered for that, please, the registration's open at 9, and of course, the event will start at 9:30 sharp. We'd like to take this moment to thank the dignitaries on stage for having taken time out from their busy schedules. And before we move into the awards, I'd like to request Mr. Anil Kumar to present a small token of our appreciation to Dr. C.N. Ashwath Narayan, Deputy Chief Minister, Karnataka. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, request you all to please give him a big round of applause as we thank him for gracing this event with his presence. I'd like to request Mr. Jitendra Chedda, Chairman Iesa, to present a small token of our appreciation to Dr. E.V. Ramna Reddy. On behalf of Iesa, we'd like to thank you, sir, for making it here this evening and gracing this occasion with your presence. And I'd like to request Dr. Satya Gupta to present a small token of appreciation to Her Excellency Dana Kush, Consul General of Israel to South India. Right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we've come to the last part of the evening. I'm sure all of you are very eagerly waiting for the awards. I know it's been a very long day, but I have one small last request of all of you. As I announce the winners and they come forward to receive their well-deserved awards, I'd like to request all of you to please put your hands together and give them a very big round of applause as they come forward. I'd like to once again welcome all of you to the IESA Spacetronics and Deftronics 2019 Awards. As I mentioned earlier, these awards aim at recognizing outstanding individuals and role models in innovation and excellence in the electronics and design services ecosystem in fields of space technology, aviation, and the defense industry. We move into the very first category. I'd like to request Dr. C.N. Ashwath Narayan to do the honors of giving the awards to the recipients for the first category. The Best Product Design Company in Space Technology, Indian MNC. Ladies and gentlemen, the award goes to Centum Electronics Limited. Please give them a big round of applause. I'd like to invite Mr. Vinod Chipalkati to come forward and receive the award. These are the industry awards for space, the first set of industry awards for space. The next award is that of Best Product Design Company in Space Technology, MSME, Indian Company, and the award goes to Captronic Systems Private Limited. Please give them a big round of applause. I'd like to invite Vinod Matthew from Captronic Systems Private Limited to please come forward and receive the award. The next award is that for Promising Space Technology Startup of the Year. We have a tie, and this is in random order. The first of the awards goes to Exceed Space. Please give them a big round of applause. I'd like to request Farhan Ashar to please come forward and receive the award. Promising Space Technology Startup of the Year, Exceed Space. Do we have anybody from Exceed Space? All right. We'll move to the next award. Like I said, it's a tie. And the Promising Space Technology Startup of the Year, the second award under this category, goes to Green IP Core. Please give them a big round of applause. There they are. I'd like to request the team to come forward with Rajesh Gupta. Could we have a big round of applause once again for all the four winners in the first category, the Industry Awards for Space. I'd like to thank Dr. C. and Ashwath Narayan for doing the honors of giving away those awards. I'd like to request Dr. E.V. Ramna Reddy to do the honors of giving away the second set of awards. This is the Industry Awards for Defense. Ladies and gentlemen, Best Electronics Manufacturing Company in Aerospace and Defense, Indian MNC, goes to TE Connectivity India Private Limited. I'd like to invite Rohit Betkeri and the team to please come forward and receive the award. The Best Electronics Manufacturing Company in Aerospace and Defense, Indian or MNC, and the award going to TE Connectivity India Private Limited. The Best Electronics Manufacturing Company in Aerospace and Defense, MSME Indian companies. The award goes to Kalyani Rafael Advanced Systems Limited. Please give them a big round of applause. I'd like to invite Rudra B. Jadeja to please come forward and receive the award on behalf of Kalyani Rafael Advanced Systems Limited. Best Electronics Manufacturing Company in Aerospace and Defense, MSME Indian companies. The last award under this category, Best Product Design Company in Aerospace and Defense, Indian or MNC, goes to HCL Technologies Limited. Please give them a big round of applause. I'd like to invite Senthil Kumaran PS to please come up on stage and receive the award. I'd like to thank Dr. E.V. Ramna Reddy for doing the honors of giving away those awards, and I'd like to now request Her Excellency Dana Kirsch to do the honors of giving away the last set of awards. This is the second set of industry awards under the category of defense. Best Product Design Company in Aerospace and Defense, MSME Indian Company. Ladies and gentlemen, the award goes to Iden Technologies Private Limited. Please give them a big round of applause. I'd like to invite Harish HV to please come up on stage and receive the award. The next award is under the category of Best Product Design Company in Aerospace and Defense, MSME Indian Company, and the award goes to Lekha Wireless Solutions Private Limited. Please give them a big round of applause. I'd like to request Amar to please come up on stage and receive it on behalf of Lekha Wireless Solutions Private Limited, the award for Best Product Design Company in Aerospace and Defense, MSME Indian Company. The last category is Promising Aerospace and Defense Startup of the Year. And again, we have a tie, so it means there's no first or second in random order. Please welcome on stage Combat Robotics India Private Limited. I'd like to request you to please give them a big round of applause and request Ganesh Pandit and Suryavanshi to please come up on stage to receive the award for Promising Aerospace and Defense Startup of the Year. A tie between two companies. The first company on stage, Combat Robotics India Private Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, the last award for this evening, Promising Aerospace and Defense Startup of the Year. The second company to tie with Combat Robotics India Private Limited is CATS Global. Please give them a big round of applause. I'd like to invite Biren Shah to please come forward and receive the award. And while he does, ladies and gentlemen, could we have a huge round of applause for all the recipients of the awards this evening? We'd like to congratulate them. Well done indeed, and wish them all the best. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, we bring to a close this event for today. You've all been a part of Spacetronics. Tomorrow is Deftronics, and I'm sure there's a lot to look forward to. I'd like to once again take this opportunity on behalf of Iesa to thank our chief guests for the day, Dr. C.N. Ashwath Narayan, Deputy Chief Minister, Karnataka, Dr. E.V. Ramna Reddy, IAS Additional Chief Secretary to Government, Department of IT, BT and Science and Technology, Government of Karnataka, and of course Her Excellency Dana Kirsch, Consul General of Israel to South India. Thank you very much, all the dignitaries on stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the whole electronics and semiconductor community, I want to thank C.N. Ashwath Kumar, Dr. Amarna and Dana Kush. Just to tell you what difference these gentlemen have made, basically, this is the fourth meeting we are having with them in 2 weeks. The first time we made the request, Anil made the request to add E to the department was 2 weeks back, and today morning we iterated that request again, and within 8 hours that request was granted, and basically the difference was made. Regarding Dana, when she was giving the video about Israel, I just noticed that basically when we started ISA, it was ISA, which is the same thing as name of their department for space. So good coincidence. Thank you very much, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, dinner is being served. We'd like to request all of you to please join us for dinner before you leave. Thank you very much.